It's 7 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting of the County Board to order. Thursday, August 21st, 2008. The time is 7 o'clock. Roll call, please.
Anderson.
Here.
Beckett.
Here.
Benzel.
Here.
Betts.
Here.
Carter.
Here.
Cowart.
Present.
Dennitz.
Here.
Gladney.
Present.
Gross. Hunt.
Here.
James.
Here.
Jay.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Knott.
Yeah, here.
Langenheim.
Here.
McGinty.
Here.
Moline. Mosier.
Here.
Nudo.
Here.
O'Connor.
Here.
Putman. Richards.
Present.
Sapp. Schrader.
Yes.
Wysocki.
Here.
Ammons. Here. Weibel.
Here, we have a quorum. Tonight's prayer. Bless those who mourn, eternal God, with the comfort of your love, that they may face each new day with hope, and the certainty that nothing can destroy the good that has been given. May their memories become joyful, their days enriched with friendship, and their lives encircled by your love. Amen. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the clerk read the notice of the meeting?
Notice is hereby given that a regular meeting of the County Board, Champaign County, Illinois will convene on August 21st, 2008, 7 p.m. in the Wild Shields Meeting Room, Brookins Administrative Center, 1776 East Washington Street, Urbana, Illinois, in said county for the purpose of allowing and ordering payments of claims against the county, receiving and acting upon reports of committees and such other matters as may be brought before said meeting shall continue in session from day to day until the completion of said business.
Move approval of the...
Moved by Mr. Betts, second by Ms. Wysocki. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Seek approval of the minutes of July 24th, 2008.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Betts, second by Ms. Wysocki. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Seek approval of the agenda and the addendum.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. James, second by Mr. Langenheim. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. The date and time of our next regular meeting is Thursday, September 18th, 2008 at 7 p.m. We need to change the date. Well, we need to change a date, and is preferably change the date of October regular meeting. Actually, should I talk to our parliamentarian? Do we have to vote on this, or can I just announce this? What's the
You've already actually adopted a schedule of meetings for the year, so you would need to have a motion to change whatever date you wish to change.
Moved by Mr. Beckett to change the date from October 21st from October 23rd to October 21st. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Betts. Discussion. I want to point out the reason again is that we need 30 days for the budget to be on file. The current calendar would only allow 29, which would be a violation of the law. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Public participation. John Babinek. Point out please take no more than 5 minutes.
Sure. I just wanted to speak very briefly on the question of the resolution for the sales tax referendum for school board facilities that's on the agenda today. With some of my involvement with running for school board and some of my talking around town, I am certainly aware of the facilities issues and the need for capital improvements in many of our districts. But I'm also aware of the feeling that there's a lack of trust and accountability in how certain of the school boards spend their money. Whether or not that's legitimate is an entirely different question altogether. But I'm here today to suggest to the school boards that are pushing this, and to the county board members in particular, is that the best way to deal with some of these accountability issues and concerns is to put their check registers online. The public, under the Freedom of Information Act, is already entitled to this information. This information is already generated in electronic format, and the cost of providing this and putting this on a website is negligible at best. In addition, it would save a great deal of time and money in responding to routine FOIA requests that certainly the media do on a routine basis and members of the public would do as well. They can simply just go to the website. And it'd be the easiest way to quell these concerns about accountability and how the money's being spent when somebody says, well, I don't trust these school boards that they're going to do what they say they're going to do with the money. Well, our books are online. Here's a checkbook. It's on the web. We've got nothing to hide. I do believe that we should be investing in our schools. There is definite need, certainly in Unit 4, which I know the most about, and the other districts as well. But I do believe that the transparency issue is something that should be addressed, and would highly encourage those districts and the members of the council to push for transparency of the check registers and the other records and get those online. Thank you.
Dave Tomlinson. The clerk, please know that Ms. Putnam and Ms. Gross have arrived.
I don't have my checkbook online tonight, but we're hoping to do that. Gene and I were having a conversation about that just a second ago. Good evening. My name is Dave Tomlinson. I'm the president of the Unit 4 Board of Education. I'm here to again put before the county board the duty that we all have as community leaders to ensure that our schools are funded adequately. For many, many years, politicians in Illinois have talked about the concept of a tax swap. Democrats, Republicans, Greens, Independents have all talked and talked and talked, and we've all heard that talking about the tax swap issue. And they've talked about the need to move away from property taxes as a primary funding mechanism for schools. Last year, the General Assembly decided to pass legislation that allows schools to bring forth a sales tax to help fund schools. This legislation allows for districts with outstanding construction debt to pay off that debt and reduce property taxes. Many have said that this legislation does not do near enough to lessen the burden on property owners, many of whom either have no kids or whose kids have long since graduated from the public school system. To those who say that this is not enough, to those who say that the legislature still has more to do, and to those who say we are not cutting enough property taxes, I would say that you are absolutely correct. However, we are working within the framework of the law. In Unit 4, we are doing the maximum that we can allow cut by this law. We are paying off all of our $15 million in construction debt. This 1% sales tax increase will result in a 3% decrease in property taxes for every property owner within the Unit 4 district. I cannot speak for the remaining 13 school districts in Champaign County, but I have been told, and I am sure that you have heard from many of my counterparts on their school boards about their plans for reducing property taxes in their districts. What else will we in Unit 4 do with the proceeds? They must be used for facilities issues, as you know. We will first appoint a community oversight group that will help ensure that we are spending the money the way we say we are going to. As for specific plans, Monday night, we are announcing the sites where, in cooperation with the plaintiffs of the consent decree case, we will be adding capacity north of University Avenue. We will take the recommendations from the Great Schools Vision Committee that is meeting even as we speak to build new infrastructure in high-growth areas of the district. September 8th, that committee is going to be making recommendations to the Unit 4 board. As you might have heard, Unit 4 recently signed an energy performance contract to replace the heating plant and lighting at Centennial and to completely replace all heating and lighting at Garden Hills. We are making use of geothermal heating and cooling technologies at Garden Hills, and these two projects will result in a $2 million savings over 20 years in energy costs. And as an added benefit, if any of you have teachers that are friends or kids that go to these two schools, air conditioning will be a part of that deal also. When the tax passes, we will use the same process that we're using now at Garden Hills and Centennial to put new HVAC systems in all of our schools. In Unit 4, our facilities are in need of desperate repair, or in desperate need. We have 11 elementary schools with an average age of 51 years old, 3 middle schools with an average age of 66 years, 2 high schools in Columbia with an average age of 74 years. It is costly to update and upgrade those facilities. We must keep pace with information technology to ensure that our students have the best opportunity to learn the knowledge and skills they need to compete in a global economy. In closing, it is imperative that the county board and all 14 Champaign County school districts who unanimously voted to approve this tax work in cooperation to make the voters and to give the voters a say in November, and to make all of our school facilities quality places to learn and work. Thank you, and the entire Unit 4 board looks forward to working with the county board and the rest of the districts in the county to make this a reality for the schools. Our finance director from Unit 4 is here, and later on during the presentation, we'd be happy to take any questions that you have about the tax. Thank you.
Mr. Vic White.
Good evening. Victor White, Superintendent of Prairie View Ogden School District, small rural community district outside of it, in Royal, Ogden, Flatville, Stanton area. I'm here tonight to I don't have a great speech like Dave had there, but I'm here that I'm hoping that you really are looking at and be offered to come out and look at our buildings. We have buildings, like he says, that are 70, 80 years old. We're in great need of doing some extras, and at the time, I have the lowest tax rate in Champaign County for K-8 districts. By that credibility, we try to keep that tax rate down. I do not have any outstanding bonds, so I do not have any way to lower the debt taxpayers to them. But every 3 years, we take out HLS, which is Health Life Safety Bonds. Those bonds are used to try to do things that keep us up to code. Now, when you have buildings that are 60, 70 years old, there's a lot to do. Just one gymnasium in one of my buildings, we got a bid for to do asbestos abatement removal of $210,000. We don't have $210,000. So those are things that we're looking to try to do to get rid of some of that stuff to make it a better learning environment. When they built that building back in the 40s, that was the way they did those things. They put that asbestos in the roofs and stuff that you don't need there anymore, shouldn't be there anymore. We're also doing green. We've had Johnson Control out. We're wanting to put a wind turbine out there in the country. We're also looking to put in geothermal to also lower our energy costs. So I'm hoping that at a county board that you will support things like this. It will make schools a great learning environment. And it will also, by what everybody has made in their motions by their boards, is lower the tax rates, all but those that don't have bonds that are outstanding. Again, I'd be willing to have any one of you come out and see our facilities, come meet with me. I'd be glad to show you my budget online or whatever you want to see where we spend our money, because we'll be glad to show you that. We have audits done all the time, so that's not an issue with us. There's nothing being hidden. I'm out in a very conservative district that we don't hide any money. There's nothing being used inappropriately. So please come out, and I'll be glad to meet with anyone and show you our facilities, but I hope that you'll support this. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Andrew Larson.
I appreciate the opportunity to be in front of you tonight. My name is Andrew Larson. I'm superintendent with the Heritage School District, Homer, Broadlands, Allerton, and Longview, southeast corner of Champaign County. Along those same lines, we do have outstanding bonds. Our board is more than ready to look to abate some of those taxes that we have in our, built up in our bonds. Most of those are life safety bonds. We're also beginning a building project that in the area of about $3 million to put up a new gymnasium and new kitchens. We have needs along those lines. We're a little short on space for those things. I can assure you that this 1% sales tax coming through for our kids all over this county will definitely benefit them and the taxpayers from the standpoint of you're not necessarily, we can be a little bit more proactive in how we address these issues that we have. We don't have to look at life safety bonds and going backdoor referendum to bring that money in. I'm not using the same type of dollars that a Champaign or Urbana would have to use. We don't have near the facilities that they do. But in the same line, I will tell you that if we don't have to take out those life safety bonds, then we're not adding to our long-term debt, and that's crucial. But again, if I'll make the same offer. You certainly can come out. I don't believe I have any county board members that sit here tonight that are in my school district, but certainly the door is always open. If we're not one of the most, as educators or as educational facilities, one of the most highly regulated entities, we're at least the top three. As Mr. White said, we have things going on, audits going on all the time to make sure that dollars are spent correctly and that everybody is towing the line in those situations. So it really is a win-win situation. I hope you take a real hard look at it. Please and thank you, and understand that we just want what's best for our kids. Thank you much.
Mr. Kent Fulmer.
Thank you. I'm Kent Fulmer. I represent Guadalupe Guzman. We are here requesting the board's adoption of Resolution 6690. It's paragraph E under the committee reports. Mr. Guzman is present. His friend who he takes care of, Tony Becker, a quadriplegic, is also present with me. If you have any questions about this particular matter, we are here to answer any questions. Other than that, I have no further comments. Thank you very much.
Mr. Kenny Rustler.
Hello, I'm Kenny Ressler, Ressler Construction Company. I'm here today to present a check to Steve Beckett here, for the disruption of the jury assembly. I'm a general contractor for Ressler Construction Company for the courthouse project. On June 2nd, the assembly was disrupted, and due to that, I'm here to present a check for that disruption. Since that time, the courthouse project has went quite well, just to let you all know. Currently doing that. Appreciate everybody's help on that on the county's end. Currently, we're done with the demolition phase this week. We had the engineers on site to check out the foundation systems. They are solid and good shape. And we're going to start going into the new phase of new construction starting the first week of September. But again, sorry for the disruption, and I'd like to make amends for that. Thank you.
Mr. Mike Lehman.
Yeah, Mike Lehman from Urbana. I want to talk just briefly about what's not on the agenda tonight, and that's the nursing home. I think somehow or another it's gotten safely punted past the November election. I don't think that this is done. I think we're really struggling here. We've got 2 more layers of management, and I'm not sure where the bills are, and I think that's the way most of the folks reading the paper probably think about this too. I hope it's not just a policy of benign neglect, because things are far from well over there. I think what the home needs is effective management and enough support to break even and to pay back what they borrowed from the general fund, and that's not going to happen with what's happening right now. Really, this sort of also speaks to where the board's priorities are. I'm glad to see that they've supported education. I think that's important. It's good to hear as a Green, seeing that they're doing, taking into account energy and stuff like that in these things, because that's going to save a lot of money in the long run for everybody. But let's not forget about seniors. I was sitting in a committee meeting here recently, and there was some discussion about the 2009 county budget. And it was suggested perhaps revenue from the justice system sales tax ought to be going to pay the utilities. And I was kind of shocked really finding out that it wasn't already going to pay the utilities. They're talking about $400,000, and I think it was about a $4 million surplus this was going to come out of. I kind of wonder all along why this wasn't going to deal with the utilities there at the jail. I think if this had been going on with a nursing home, somebody would have been claiming it was one of those unneeded subsidies. So I just hope that our seniors don't end up having to deal with the scraps that fall off the table. No one is suggesting privatizing the sheriff's departments or taking care of the roads or anything like that. I think a lot of people have invested a lot of money. In fact, recently as 2002, people were asked about a nursing home. They said, yeah, we want to build it. I don't think they wanted to build that to sell it, close it, lease it out, or whatever. I think they want it to be one where people, the neediest people at the neediest point in their life, could go and find good care. It's not on the agenda. I've got another meeting to go to tonight, but I hope this is not the last of it because I'm sure it's far from settled. But thanks for your efforts so far.
Is there any other public participation? Seeing none, we'll close public participation. Go on to announcements. I'd like to announce that on next Monday, August 25th, there is the first day of legislative budget hearings in this room. It starts at 6:30. Second day is on the following day, on Tuesday, August 26th, where it starts at 7 o'clock. Mr. Langenheim, do you have an announcement?
Yes. I represent the county board on the Muhammad Aquifer Consortium. We had a meeting last week in which it was reported that the state funds for the study of the aquifer have been terminated. They have the first 2 installments of those funds, which will see us through the study of the actual usage, how much water is being used, but the funds are not available for the second phase of it, which is estimating future requirements.
Thank you. Are there other announcements? Mr. McGinty?
At your desk, there's a packet full of information, one of which is the nursing home cash flow report from Management Performance Associates as item number 3 on pages 5 through 13.
Thank you. Mr. Beckett?
I put at your desk tonight a brochure that reminds us all of the Lincoln Bicentennial, and one of the major events that's being planned by the Champaign County Bicentennial, Lincoln Bicentennial Commission is the Lincoln Fest, which will be Lincoln movies a la Ebert Fest to be held in the Virginia Theater on March 13th, 14th, and 15th of 2009. There is an opportunity for all citizens to not only participate but support this activity, and we think it's going to be a wonderful community and educational event. Thank you.
Any other announcements?
I guess I could do this now.
Go ahead, Mr. Beckett.
Instead of doing it on facilities. Everybody tonight, you got a brick. You know, there are a few perks being on the county board, but Gail White and Ken Ressler and Denny and myself, as we saw the tower coming down and saw that there were bricks that could not be used, wondered, you know, what do we do with these old bricks? And so we thought we would create a memento, and so these are all gifts to you. As I said, one of the few perks, they make wonderful door stops, if you haven't noticed that. And obviously, we're pleased with the progress of the project so far, and keep our fingers crossed that we'll have good sailing in the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Beckett. Any other announcements? No throwing, Ms. Putnam.
No, I'm showing the media.
Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. I want to point out that we have to pull off item number 23. The candidate is deceased. If we were in other places, you probably could get away with it, but not in Champaign County. Mr. McGinty.
I'd also like to pull item number 7 from the finance agenda.
Is it number 7? 7. Ms. Anderson.
I would like to pull policy number 1.
Policy number 1. Mr. Nudo.
Yes, I'd like to pull from finance items 3, 4, and 6.
Grief.
Mr. Beckett.
From policy, I'd like to pull items 25 and 31. I have to abstain.
25 and 31?
Right.
Are you caught up here, Mr. Betts? You got them all?
That's what I'm doing, is get them as quickly as I can. I think I've got 23, 25, 31, and 1.
Number 1 was from...
Ms. Anderson,
oh, that's right.
because
Okay.
of conflict.
All right. Anything else we pull from consent? Mr. Beckett.
I move adoption of the consent agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Second.
Did you? That's one you pulled, right? Yes. Okay, we got that. The second by Mr. Langenheim. Roll call.
Anderson.
Yes.
Beckett.
Yes.
Benzel.
Yes.
Betts.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes.
Cowart.
Yes.
Dennitz.
Yes.
Gladney.
Yes.
Gross. Hunt.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Knott.
Yes.
Langenheim.
Yes.
McGinty.
Yes.
Mosier. Nudo.
Yes.
O'Connor.
Yes.
Putman.
Yes.
Richards.
Yes.
Sapp.
Yes.
Schrader.
Yes.
Wysocki.
Yes.
Ammons.
Yes.
Weibel.
Yes, motion carries. Moving on to committee reports. Without objection, I'd like to move ELUC to the top because we have a family here waiting. If that's okay with the board. Ms. Wysocki.
I move the adoption of resolution number 6690, granting a floodplain variance, which is zoning case 606-FE-08.
Second.
Second by Mr. Betts. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Wysocki. Justice and Social Services, Ms. Anderson.
We have one item. I would like to move adoption of resolution number 6632 for the endorsement of a countywide prescription drug savings card. And if we get a second, I would like to speak to that.
Second.
Second by Mr. Betts. Go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
This item was discussed at length at our Justice Social Service meeting, and the resolution did pass unanimously, but we wanted to put it on the regular agenda so that all the board members would be aware of the card and just what it meant. The resolution speaks to it a little bit, but doesn't explain it entirely, and also so the general public would know. We were NACO, which is the National Association of County Organizations, adopted a drug card in 2005, which is called Caremark, and we were going to explore this and hopefully bring it to the county. But in that process, in talking to Vic Christensen at Senior Services, found out that United Way was beginning to promote a card called Family Wise. And they had just started this past spring, so asked Beverly Baker from United Way to come, and she did a presentation at our meeting and explained the card and the coverage it would provide and so forth. And we felt that it compared equally to the NACO Caremark card. And I'd like to just briefly read from their prescription card flyer. This is a card that would be used by people who are uninsured or what we might call partially insured, like even Medicare patients when they reach that donut hole when their medications are not covered. And the average savings is anywhere from, well, they say 35%, but often 20 to 35. It covers all prescription drugs. It's accepted at most pharmacies nationwide, and there's no enrollment or activation fees. There's no cost for the card, no age or income restrictions. And what United Way has done in developing this card for the community would be the same kinds of things that we would have to do if we were bringing the NACO card. They've also, even though nationally the pharmacies accept the card, they did go to each of the pharmacies locally to make sure that they would be accepted. They have distributed packets, that's what I have here, to social service agencies and healthcare agencies. They have a staff person that's dedicated to promoting this program, and they also have volunteers that are helping them to follow up and making sure that it does get promoted well. So it seemed like we shouldn't be duplicating efforts, that it would be better if we would just join and help promote. And you may wonder what the obligation would be to the county. Well, there really is no obligation. They plan to do a press release in September. On those materials, our name would be listed as the county board in support of this. Anything else that we wanted to do, like perhaps put an article in our newsletter on the website, those kinds of things, but it wouldn't cost us anything. And I would hope that we would want to support having this card. And I just Also wanted to mention, I glanced at the paper before I came, and there's a front page story on the Gazette tonight entitled, "Insurance Gap Leads Some to Go Without Medicine," and it talks about Medicare patients when they've reached that donut hole, and they can't afford, particularly they noted diabetics, and some heart patients are going without medications, and this is actually very dangerous. So I hope you will be supported.
Further discussion. Ms. Putnam.
I cannot highly enough commend the Justice Committee for bringing this forward. I'm sorry Ms. McGrath has left the room because I especially want to thank her for legal research on the NACO drug discount program that she began back in the fall of 2005. And I want to thank Vic Christensen, Darlene Kleppel, and Chairman Weibel. Thank you very much for proceeding with this. The NACO drug discount program was something that Steve Beckett, Brendan McGinty, and I learned about when we returned from the NACO conference in 2005. And at the time, I was seeking help to promote it. Healthcare Consumers was the most logical agency to whom I turned. For reasons not related to the program, they weren't able to work with us on promoting it. You all know the adage from politics and advertising that you don't want to roll out a program in August. So it just never got the head of steam going in 2005. And now I'm pleased that 3 years later we are rolling it out. And I'm so glad that it will be in September, not in August. And I know that collaboratively we can think of ways that the county can help promote this. A link on our website, more wonderful assistance from our IT department. And I'm just very, very pleased that we can offer this. Thank you.
Other discussion. Mr. James.
I strongly supported it in committee because it made Mr. Carter feel good, so I went with it.
Thank you, Mr. James. Ms. Gross.
I hate to be the wet blanket here, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm suspicious. Who's profiting from this? And I can't figure that out. Not going to cost anybody anything. Nothing is free, folks. And who are these people? Where's the money going? Why are we picking this particular one as opposed to any of 20 or 30 others that are out there? Why don't we just endorse the fact that you can walk into Snooks and get all of your prescriptions at a set reduced rate without any hassle? What's the county board doing endorsing this particular one? Should we also endorse that you buy your books from Barnes & Noble instead of Amazon? Or that you support Warden Martin instead of Rogers Chevrolet? This doesn't make any sense to me. And it just doesn't smell right.
Ms. Anderson.
I'd like to respond. United Way is not receiving anything financially from doing this. I think that these are groups that have a concern for the uninsured and the costs and families that cannot afford. And if there are cards that, like, say, Schnucks, people are not forced to use these cards. And some of the cards that are offered, they do cost something. People have to pay, I think one of the cards, $50 a year for a membership. One is $100. This doesn't cost the families anything. But, if those of us that are fortunate to have good insurance coverage, our insurance companies work with getting discounts from the pharmacies. So this is a group that is working to get discounts for those people who don't have the luxury of having insurance or someone, that's getting that. So they've worked with the pharmacies nationally to get those discounts that you can give groups. And I guess that's all I can respond to that. When I said it's not costing anything, whenever we vote on something, it seems like people here are wondering, what's the county going to have to pay for it? So that was my comment about it's not going to cost anything as far as we are concerned. Actually, if we were promoting our own NACO card, it might cost a little bit the amount of publishing packets and so forth to send out, but United Way is doing that, so we don't really even have to do that. It's just adding our name to it to make people out there aware that they can use the card if they so choose.
Ms. Putnam.
Because I participated in the seminars in 2005, Ms. Gross, I can tell you those very questions were asked about, for example, the NACO-supported plan. Who's making money? Caremark? The answer is, in that program, yes, Caremark was making money in the economy of scale. They would be selling more prescription drugs, albeit at a discount, and that was the market analysis that Caremark did. Yes, this cost us some money. Now, I'm glad Susan's back, so I can thank her again. It cost us to pay Susan McGrath to research this in 2005. It cost the salaries of Darlene Kleppel and Vic Christensen to compare and contrast this and other discount programs. It will cost our IT staff their time if they put a link from our website to it. There are costs. The benefits are so overwhelming, and that's why I can support this.
Further discussion? See none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
That's all for Justice
Thank you,
Social
Ms. Anderson.
Services. Thank you.
County Facilities, Mr. Beckett.
All of the facilities items were on consent agenda tonight.
I
didn't know that was the facilities. I just thought that was other business. I'll call your attention
Just point
to
out.
item 4 on the addenda for information only. Of course, the construction project must have an approved project emergency action plan and disaster discovery plan. Pages 14 and 18 of your addendum packet demonstrate that the plan is in existence and it has been approved by the safety engineer.
Thank you, Mr. Beckett. Policy Personnel and Appointments, Mr. Betts.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move adoption of Resolution 6637 approving the Champaign County Strategic Plan. I so move.
Second.
Second by Ms. McGinty. Point out that there's a revised plan in the separate package here. Discussion. Mr. Sapp.
Can you tell us what was revised from what?
Actually, mostly editorial remarks by Ms. Putnam. I think they're all editorial remarks by Ms. Putnam. Ms. McGinty? Okay. No further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I move approval of Resolution 6638, a resolution placing the question of imposing a county school facilities tax in the county at the general election to be held on November 4th, 2008, and I so move.
Second.
Second by Ms. Cowart. She had her hand up first. Discussion. Mr. Knott.
Yeah, I mean, we've all talked a lot about this. We've talked about it in our caucus, and I'm sure the Democrats did too. But, you know, and we talked about this in policy. What we're doing tonight is another step in what the statute has required the county board to do. Our vote tonight is to place this on the ballot, not necessarily to endorse the concept. My personal belief is the voters ought to have an opportunity to vote on this. I know it's split about, you know, a lot of people think it may or may not reduce your property taxes. The only thing I can do is, one, thank Al Nudo for the work that he did on this and working with the regional superintendent's office and all the local superintendents of getting their word and their board's word that they will reduce property taxes. Will they keep their word? I don't know. You know, I've been on the county board for 8 years and can say twice on things that we put on the ballot that we changed it later on. You know, and you know that's just it may or they may or may not. The local voters will have to hold them accountable. I know in St. Joe, for example, I trust them. I know they'll keep their word and they'll do this. I think it's a good thing to put on the ballot. So that's the way I think we should approach this from our vote tonight, is to put it on the ballot. You may or may not endorse it when you go to the voting booth yourself personally, but I I think we owe it to the step to go ahead and put this on the ballot tonight and do our job.
Ms. Amons.
I appreciate him making that clear because, of course, I've had a lot of conversations with people who will not necessarily see the refund themselves and went over the Illinois compiled statute so that I could be clear on what I'm actually voting on tonight, making it very clear that this vote is in response to a very poorly written law on the state level that gives us the instruction to vote on it, however, also at the same time gives us an instruction that if we don't vote yes, there's some possible litigation as a result. And I want people to really understand that the state statute is something that, you know, we have to begin to learn and teach people when we're doing these types of votes. So although I will support it being on the ballot tonight, I personally do not support the outcomes as projected by the research that's been done currently.
Mr. Betts.
I guess I want to echo what both Greg and Carol Emmons said. Our function here this evening is to put it on the ballot. I wholeheartedly agree with what Carol said regarding the legislation itself. I think it is not well drafted. I quite frankly believe that we are not a partner in this. When Stifel-Nicolaus came before the policy committee and said, the county board is a partner in this process, no, we're not a partner. We have no choice other than to put this on the ballot. That's not a partnership. A partnership has give and take and discussion, and one of the party doesn't hold all the cards. In this case, the school boards hold all the cards. That's fine because it's a school tax. The school boards should, once they reach the magical number of 51%, it should simply go on the ballot through the county clerk's office. It shouldn't. This is not a discretionary act, from what I see in this statute. So I don't think that the county board actually should have a role in whether or not it goes on the ballot. So we have no choice other than to vote yes to do so. Otherwise, a court will order that it be on the ballot, which may be just fine, but that would be what would happen. I echo what Carol said in terms of this fall. It's up to the voters to vote yes or vote no. My own inclination, quite frankly, I've never voted against a school issue in my entire life in voting for over 40 years. This one, I am very strongly leaning to vote against it, only because it's a highly regressive tax. I think it's very, very strange to promote sales taxes as a progressive answer to school funding when it's the most regressive tax we have. I think as long as we do this in Illinois, the state legislature is never going to step up to the plate and adopt a graduated income tax to solve the school funding issue, where it guarantees and perpetuates inequity throughout the state. And I see this as just exacerbating that. It provides some property tax relief, at least theoretically, but again, it does it at the expense of having, quite frankly, the poorest people in the community subsidize the tax breaks for property owners. Many property owners need the property tax break. There's no question about it. In Champaign-Urbana, 3 out of 5 residents are not property owners. They are renters. I think it is very dubious that rents will go down as a result of this, but renters can vote as their consciences will dictate. But there are very real philosophical problems with sales taxes. But it is up to the voters this fall if they want to impose a regressive tax on themselves and swallow it. In order for a greater good, they have a right to do so. And that's all we're doing tonight, is mandatorily giving them that opportunity, because it is not a discretionary act on our part.
Mr. Nudo, did you have a hand up?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to speak positively about this particular opportunity for us in a bipartisan way to support what I believe is going to be a huge benefit to our entire community. If you talk to the Carls and the Christies and the University of Illinois and other large employment businesses, they will tell you the first thing that people that they solicit to come work for them, their family wants to know about the school system. And so many times we have unfortunately deferred the kinds of maintenance that this bill calls for. Now, this passed unanimously in Iowa. Every county in Iowa uses it. And I have in front of me the new Iowa legislation. They went back in and changed some things, including mandatory initial property tax rebates, a sunset clause. We've also spoken to, and I mentioned this before, that we've spoken to literally every legislator in the local area. And Brendan and I met with the Chamber of Commerce yesterday. We're going to support a forum. The Chamber is going to support a forum to take the legislators meet together and make some of these changes that Carol alluded to as far as some of the flaws. But I will say this, we've got 85 to 90% of the things that we want voluntarily from the school superintendents and from the school system. Little old Heritage is giving back, what was it, $280 in property tax rebates. Now, to spend, if you divide that by a penny, that property tax owner would have to spend $28,000 in non-essential items. Now, to the point of whether rents are going to go down or not, I guarantee you, with 6,000 new beds coming online in this community, rents are coming down. So, you know, capitalist system is going to take care of that issue, whether landlords can equate that if they got a property tax break, whether they should reduce their rents. We've got 6,000 new beds coming online where things are going to drop prices faster than you can think about. So that's a side issue. My point is that we've got a tremendous opportunity in a bipartisan way to support something that is at worst tax neutral and at best tax advantage to the people who by and large support the majority of the items that they have to pay for in this county. I'm talking about the taxpayer. And one of the big benefits Tom alluded to is, he alludes it as a negative. We have probably about 30% of all sales tax coming in from outside the community. We're a regional shopping center, and we also have, we're blessed with having 30,000 students out of whatever our population is, plus their parents, buying things here, instead of paying 10% in Chicago. The majority of them are from Chicago. So I don't see it as regressive as Tom does. But I think we have a tremendous opportunity right now to do something positive.
Further discussion. Oh, Mr. McGinty.
Absolutely, Alan. You know, I just wanted to say that it hasn't been too often that I've seen someone who has done the level of homework that Mr. Nuno has done on this issue, reaching out to all of the school districts, all of the area legislators, to add levels of intelligence and accountability to this very issue to make it, I think, you know, quite acceptable with flaws known. We understand where the areas of flaw, I think, exist. And he's taken it even a step further beyond Champaign County, you know, to reach out to try to change how this works in our state. I admire that very much, and I thank the school districts for being so amenable to discussion about it, for not just saying we want it all, but for saying we'll show you what we're going to do with it, and we're going to do this right. I appreciate all those efforts.
Ms. Putnam.
I'm so pleased that Mr. Betts and Ms. Ammons have emphasized that a yes vote on this matter does not constitute a county board endorsement. And I very much appreciate Alan Nudo and Brendan McGinty coming forward. Now I know that there are two people from two different parties, two county board members, who personally are really going to go to bat and bring their energy to securing passage of the referendum. For all I know, there will be some other county board members, perhaps a Ms. Ammons, perhaps a Mr. Betts, perhaps some people in the audience who will be working to defeat the referendum. But it's restoring to me to see board members be involved to work around issues that they believe in, which is not something new for us. I want to express to anyone from Unit 116 who might be watching this meeting on TV that I did not accept their invitation to view examples of the deferred maintenance in our Urbana public schools, not out of disrespect. I don't need to see the deferred maintenance. I want the maintenance to be not deferred. I want to spend money on schools. I wish if someone were going to ask, does Putnam favor spending money on education, the question would be yes. Does Putnam think that sales tax is better than real estate tax? Well, I guess I'll take advantage of the coming months until November to decide. But it's appropriate that we do decide this at the ballot box.
Further discussion. Mr. Mosier?
I was leery about this, but when you look at Heritage and the Prairie View District and Ludlow, those people have a tax base that's farmland, that there's no increase in the assessed valuation in the property in the small towns, and the disintegration of Broadlands and Longview just give me every reason to support this, because that district has done a tremendous job of educating people with not a whole lot of money. And I know I played basketball in that gym at Broadlands when I was in high school, and that's getting to be a long, long time ago.
The building must be in bad shape.
And if there's some way to get money into those systems to let those people maintain their own school district and not go consolidate with somebody in Edgar County or somebody in Vermilion County, I'm going to support it. I don't like paying taxes, but I think this is a step in the right direction. It certainly was a step in the right direction when this county board got that 1/4 cent sales tax passed, because I don't know how many property tax levies we've abated because we were able to pay for it some other way. And to me, this just makes a lot of sense. If they'll keep their word and spend their money the way they've told us, I'll support it and I'll help them.
Further discussion. Ms. Ammons.
I did want to wait and allow for everybody else to make theirs before I made a second comment, but I want to make sure that we don't change the language that the public has to hear. Funding the schools is an issue from state to state in this country. The question is, will we move to a system of funding all of our public institutions by consumption taxes? And that's what this is. Mm-hmm. And so I'm concerned about the dialogue being very one-sided without looking at the other side of the issue. And this board's responsibility is to discuss that, but is that the vote tonight? No. So I would hope that there will be public forums to educate and discuss this issue with the public, so the public does not go into the ballot box assuming that we are going to fix all of this educational system problem by passing this consumption tax. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Mr. O'Connor?
Well, could we perhaps consider a rental tax to be a consumption tax? It's the people that are living in the apartments that are going to continue to be assessed up and up and up every year, and the people that are paying the rent, it's not the landlord that's going to pay it, so that's a form of consumption tax too.
I don't think we can consider it here, but you might bring it up with other people. Mr. Carter, it's good to see you here, Mr. Carter.
Well, I hate a tax burden on anybody, but when we can build schools and hotels in Iraq, and our kids got to go home when it gets too hot, they got to go on the street corners to watch cars, there's something that's wrong here. Is that we don't pay the taxes to do this, but some way they are getting diverted to the wrong places. And we support people over there that have an oil surplus, and we still giving them billions of dollars. So why can't we use that money here for our education, which we're dropping behind? Our kids is coming out of school and don't know A from B. They're getting why they can't compete in the world market anymore. So I'm wondering, when is this country going to wake up and say that's enough?
That's a good question, Mr. Carter. Mr. Knott.
Well, I just do want to put a plug in for the schools because I think we've got 14 outstanding districts in this county. So I know I've got 2 kids in one of them, and they do come out, and there are top-notch students that come out. So I think our local schools do a lot of great things, and maybe nationally there's issues, but I think locally we've got 14 great school districts that ought to get a round of applause for all they have to put up with and do. So I think they do a good job.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, let's have a roll call.
Anderson,
Yes.
Beckett,
Yes.
Benzel,
Yes.
Betts,
Yes.
Carter, Cowart, Dinitz, Gladney,
Yes.
Gross, Hunt, James,
No.
Jay,
Yes.
Jones, Knott,
Yes.
Langenheim, McGinty,
Yes.
Mosier,
Yes.
Nudo,
Yes.
O'Connor,
Yes.
Putman,
Yes.
Richards,
Yes.
Sapp,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Wysocki,
Yes.
Ammons,
Yes.
Wyball.
Yes, motion carries.
Move adoption of Resolution 6639, appointing Brenda Anderson to the Champaign County Board of Health for a term ending June 30th, 2011, and I so move.
Second.
Second by Mr. James.
This is here because Ms. Janet Anderson, our board member, has a conflict. Needs to be.
Ms. Anderson, do you want to?
I just wanted to explain that I asked to take this off so that I could abstain. Brenda Anderson is my daughter-in-law. Ms. McGrath did indicate that I could vote on this since neither one of us will get any remuneration from this, but I thought for appearance purposes it would be better that I abstain.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
I would like to comment, though, that I think she's well qualified with her nursing background and
I'm sorry. If you're going to abstain from the vote, you really can't comment on this. You cannot comment if you're going to abstain.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, further discussion. Ms. Putnam.
I'd just like to point out one of the many excellent high qualities that Ms. Anderson would bring to the Board of Health, the fact that she is a resident not of Champaign and Urbana, but of the geographic county Board of Health. And I wish that if I were being considered for appointment to a public commission or board, that my mother-in-law would vote for me.
Thank you, Ms. Putnam. Further discussion. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
The next matter is item 25, adoption of Resolution 6663, appointing Charles Daly to the St. Joseph Drainage Number 3 Drainage District for a term ending August 31st, 2011, and I so move.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mosier. I believe Mr. Beckett has to abstain.
I must abstain as a client,
Thank you.
attorney-client.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
The next matter is the adoption, I move adoption of Resolution 6669, appointing Roy Douglas to the Union Drainage District Number 1 of Philo and Urbana for a term ending August 31st, 2011, and I so move.
Second by Mr. Mosier. Mr. Beckett.
I must abstain. I have, again, a client.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
And I believe that
Motion
is, 23 is,
Oh, was it? Okay. Sorry.
I believe that's all we have.
No action.
No action.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Unless we can resurrect him.
We're not Chicago.
Removed. Yes.
I don't have that power yet.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, Finance. Mr. McGinty, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Finance Committee recommends adoption of Resolution Number 6675, payment of claims authorization, and I so move.
Second by Mr. Beckett. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Finance Committee recommends adoption of Resolution Number 6676, purchases not following purchasing policy, and I so move.
Second.
Second by Mr. Beckett. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Finance Committee recommends adoption of Resolution Number 6677, a budget amendment for $800,000. This amendment covers additional expenditures for the highway facility construction project that were outside of the scope of the general contractor. The corresponding revenue increase reflects revenue appropriated in previous fiscal years, but not yet transferred to cover projected costs, and I so move.
Second.
Second by Mr. Jay. Discussion. Mr. Benzel.
My one frustration with this is, this is to cover the parking lot that should have been included in the original contract, and I complained about it when we started this project. I felt like it should have been in there. It seems a little inappropriate to not include that, but we did that at the nursing home. So this is probably my one final time to vote against anything on this, but this is a cost that should have been included so that everybody's eyes were open at that time.
Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call. Need 18 votes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Beckett,
Yes.
Benzo,
No.
Betts,
Yes.
Carter, Cowart, Dinitz,
No.
Gladney,
Yes.
Gross, Hunt, James,
No.
Jay,
Yes.
Jones,
No.
Knott,
No.
Langenheim,
Yes.
McGinty,
Yes.
Mosier,
Yeah.
Nudo,
No.
O'Connor,
No.
Putman,
Yes.
Richards,
Yes.
Sapp,
No.
Schrader,
No.
Wysocki,
Yes.
Ammons,
No.
Wybo.
Yes. Does not pass, correct? Did not pass.
Item number 4, Finance Committee recommends adoption of Resolution number 6678, approving the classification of the positions in the Information Technology Division, and I so move.
Second by Mr. Richards. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
From the consent agenda, item number 3, the Finance Committee recommends adoption of Resolution number 6681, a budget amendment for $17,427. The Correctional Center computers scheduled for replacement in 2009 have been replaced in fiscal year '08, and video arraignment system components scheduled for future replacement have been replaced in fiscal '08. This amendment appropriates funds that were reserved for these replacements prior to December of '07, and I so move.
Second by Ms. Wysocki. Discussion. Mr. Nudo?
In light of our problems we have with the overall budget, regardless if it's reserve or general funds, we don't have the money.
Ms. Ammons?
I think that what Mr. Nudo just brought up is the reason why I couldn't support the previous amendment. We have a process going on that is consistent with a very unsustainable spending binge that we do on this county. And we don't look realistically at our budget. I will attend the budget hearings coming up. I am concerned with how we are appropriating funds from year to year, where we cannot really account for what we have and what we don't have, or putting projects in place that we don't adequately fund and try to fund them on the back end. That type of financing and budgeting has to stop. And so I will not support this amendment.
Mr. McGinty?
I respectfully disagree. I mean, there are times when you can't stop business from happening. There are times when you spend some to save some. Equipment is one of those things that there is a fine line. You have to make a determination as to when it makes sense to spend when things are either becoming outdated or are causing inefficiencies by failure, or when new systems are introduced and the current technology cannot support that. This is one of those cases. There are 2 other things being brought off of consent. I understand why, because I certainly pay close attention to the budget. I think the entire Finance Committee does, and I think that a lot of the board members do. I know that Ms. Busey does. You know, we do this very seriously every year. There's a reason why our budgets and our process is acknowledged by Government Finance Officers Association, things like that, which show that there is a clue, and that we're not just spending at will, and that budgets typically come in pretty close to balanced, except in exceptional circumstances, and that hasn't happened a whole lot since I've been here. I've seen it in years of watching the county board. So I respectfully disagree with those comments. I understand why people wouldn't necessarily support this because of the budgetary constraints that we're under, but there are times when we have to look beyond that and keep business flowing.
Mr. Jones?
I was wondering if Ms. Busey had any comments on this.
Well, you do have a capital asset replacement fund, and through that fund, we take all of the items of technology, and each year, in the year in which we purchase them, then for the next 3 to 5 years, we set aside a certain amount of money each year so that when it comes time to replace that item, when it's due to be replaced, the funds will be there without requiring the county board to have to come up with large lump sums. This has been a very successful program that's been in place since 2001. The budget amendment that you have before you for the sheriff's office, there are a couple of issues that arose this year. For video arraignment, some of the components of that system began to fail. We had to replace them or we wouldn't be able to continue doing video arraignment. If we didn't do video arraignment, we would have to use a lot of staff time to bring incarcerated individuals to court instead of enabling them to participate in video arraignment. So we went ahead and replaced a couple of components, knowing that we already had $8,000 reserved in funds that were committed in previous fiscal years, and these funds came from the Public Safety Sales Tax Fund, not from the General Corporate Fund. Similarly, the Sheriff's Office and the Correctional Center have had to go live this year with the JNO system, which means they need duo systems operating on their computers. And the technology that was already scheduled to be replaced in 4 months in December with the fiscal year 09 budget simply could not keep up with the new technology requirements. So it seemed advisable to go ahead and replace those computers with funds, again, that have been appropriated prior to fiscal year 2008 from the public safety sales tax to enable the sheriff's office to maintain their technology. So the budget amendment before you this evening is consists of revenue. We're not asking for new revenue. This revenue is dedicated to the replacement of the items that we're talking about here. That's why it's been set aside, and it was set aside prior to fiscal year 2008.
Ms. Wysocki.
This has been a good effort as far as setting this money aside over a period of time with the idea that when we need it for this particular purpose, it's there. And I really think we're doing ourselves a disservice by looking at the previous budget amendment, the one that had to do with the $800,000 for the parking lot, and this one, and trying to make the case that this is holding the line on the budget. If the money is allocated and it's there, and this is the time when the need is greatest, then we need to go ahead and do it. The previous budget amendment that had to do with the parking lot, this is not money that comes out of General Corp, right? This is motor fuel tax money, which can't be spent on anything else.
Except roads.
Mr. O'Connor, you're out of order, please.
I'm sorry.
Well, it's not going to contribute to the general fund. It's not going to be moved into some other social program or buy computers someplace else or do things of that nature. But, you know, there are times when it makes sense to hold the line on the budget because an item is too expensive, because we haven't planned for it. And when we're exercising these votes to simply do what we think is fiscally conservative when we're basically shooting ourselves in the foot.
Other discussion?
Probably want a roll call vote on this.
Do we have to have a roll call vote? There has to be 18 votes. Please proceed.
Anderson?
Yes.
Beckett?
Yes.
Benzel? No. Betts?
Yes.
Carter? Howard? Dennett?
No.
Gladney? Gross? Hunt?
No.
James?
No.
Jay?
No.
Jones?
Yes.
Knott?
Yes.
Langenheim?
No.
McGinty?
Yes.
Mosher?
Yeah.
Nudo? That was gone. O'Connor?
No.
Putman? Yes. Richards?
Yes.
Sapp?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
Wysocki?
Yes.
Ammons?
No.
Weibel?
Yes. Motion failed.
Let's try again. Item number 4. Finance Committee recommends adoption of Resolution Number 6682, a budget amendment for $2,205. 3 auditors' office computers scheduled for replacement in 2009 will be replaced in 2008 with funds that were reserved for these replacements prior to December 1, 2007, and I so move.
Second.
Second by Mr. Betts.
Mr. Chairman.
Discussion. Mr. Betts.
I think I know what's happening this evening. I think we're somewhat wasting our time. I think I would like to move to send this back to committee so that people can sit down and look at this again and understand what they're actually doing instead of just defeating these.
Second.
Second by Mr. Beckett. We can discuss this, correct, Ms.?
Motion to defer, non-debatable.
Oh,
It's
sorry.
motion to send back to
Send
committee.
back to committee.
Which
Is
is
that the
debatable.
motion?
Yeah, it was.
That's debatable
That's
then.
also. Thank you. Mr. McGinty.
I don't want to debate against sending it back to committee. That could be a fine idea. I just would encourage board members to understand, I think, what we're voting on before we actually come to full board. I mean, it was at finance. It was discussed. It's in the minutes. We've done with this before, and so I would just encourage those to maybe come to finance next time or come to the budget hearings. It's a good idea too, but to do that, please.
Further discussion on motion to send this back to committee. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 6, the Finance Committee recommends adoption of Resolution Number 6684, a budget amendment for $75,000 to purchase new computers for the Circuit Clerk's Office. Purchase originally in last year's budget and not spent until this year, and I so move.
Second.
Second by Mr. Betts.
Move to send
Mr.
it back to
Betts.
committee.
Second. The motion moved back to committee has been seconded by Mr. Beckett. Discussion. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Item number 7, I move adoption of Resolution Number 6685, a budget amendment for increased appropriation of $156,000, increased revenue of $160,000. This is receipt of new revenue for the infant toddler full day program, and I so move.
Second.
Second
And
by
I
Mr.
will not
Beckett.
send it back to committee.
Mr. McGinty.
This is only being brought off of consent because of a clerical error. The information that came out of committee had a line item, 2 line items, 513.04. One of them was removed. The information that's in your board packet is correct.
Discussion. Ms. Anderson?
Question. These are federal funds that come to Head Start, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Further discussion. All in favor? Oh, sorry. Roll call. We got used to those deferred motions.
Anderson?
Yes.
Beckett?
Yes.
Benzel? Betts?
Yes.
Carter? Cowart? Dinitz? Gladney?
Yes.
Gross? Hunt?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Knott? Langenheim?
Yes.
McGinty?
Yes.
Mosier? Nudo?
Yes.
O'Connor? Putman?
Yes.
Richards?
Yes.
Sapp? Schrader?
Yes.
Wysocki?
Yes.
Ammons?
Yes.
Wybo?
Yes, motion carries.
I am pleased to report that's all from finance.
Mr. Chairman,
Thanks.
parliamentary inquiry.
Yes, Mr. Betts?
I would ask regarding Resolution 6677, which was a budget amendment that was defeated, what is the exact status in terms of have any been contracts or bids or anything like that been let out in reliance on the fact that we would have this budget amendment?
Yes.
So we are legally obligated to pay this debt, am I correct?
Yes.
And I would just like to point out that these items were budgeted for
I
in the
understand
highway
that. I
fund.
know.
But it is an auditor requirement that they be paid out of the construction project budget instead of the highway fund where they were originally intended to be paid from.
As a further parliamentary inquiry, since I believe we are absolutely legally mandated to pay our bills, even when I don't like to pay my own personal bills, I pay them so that I don't get sued. Parliamentary procedure-wise, in order to put this back on the table this evening, a motion to reconsider would need to be made, but it needs to be made by the prevailing party, which
Correct.
is the party that defeated it. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
So move. I voted no.
Mr. Langen did vote no.
And I seconded
We have a
it
second by Mr. Betts.
as a motion to reconsider. May I speak?
Motion to reconsider.
Question.
Discussion. Mr. Betts.
On the question of the reconsideration, and I respect the right of people to vote no on all sorts of things. I've done it myself, but I've tried, when we have a legal obligation to pay a debt, we have already performed the work and done the job, to then turn around and say, we're not going to pass the amendment to actually pay for it. That is very, very problematic. It is very difficult. I have not heard someone state a reason why we shouldn't pay our bills. Now, if you have a philosophical objection in general to paying bills, I can almost respect that. But the idea of actually encumbering the bill and then not paying it, to me, is very, very dangerous for government to do, for individuals to do, for homeowners to do. We have certain obligations, and I think we need to recognize that the time to oppose this was when the bids and stuff were being let out, and we should have said, no, we don't want to build a parking lot. It wasn't included in the original design, so we're not going to do it. And that at least is consistent. But to actually do the job and then not pay it, that's dangerous. You know, if we want to do good government accounting and we're proud of that, this is the kind of stuff we should not be doing. So I would ask that people support the motion to reconsider it, and so we pay our own bills.
Mr. Beckett?
I actually think the motion to reconsider, does it just bring it back on the table?
Yeah.
That's correct.
And then is it your intent to send it back to committee so we can have a healthy discussion about all of these?
Either way, I'll do it either way.
Well, it just seems to me that, I guess my concern is, we get rated, and we get rated on the basis of our procedures and also the fact that we pay our bills. And if we don't pay our bills, it's going to hurt our ratings. And I realize this is a year that's divisible by 2, and there are elections in November, and there are all kinds of reasons why people vote no. But this one, I'm sorry, this one just doesn't make any sense. It makes absolutely no sense. We're expending money that we've allocated in this instance on the parking. Everybody knew how that parking lot was going to be paid for. Mr. Bensel knew how it was going to be paid for. He didn't like it. He said then he didn't like it. And now, except for the auditor's request that we change the paperwork to have the money coming out of construction budget instead of out of highway, this would be a dead issue. But not paying this is going to hurt us. It's going to hurt Champaign County.
Ms. McGinty?
I'm not sure what moving it back to committee would necessarily accomplish unless all the other board members attended. Finance Committee was in attendance. There was a reason why we voted unanimously, and it was on consent.
Mr. Betts?
Well, my motion is to reconsider, and it'll be up to the body as to what it wants to. I would personally like to see it reconsidered, brought before this body this evening, so that we go on record as agreeing that Champaign County government pays its bills. But if someone brings a motion to send it to committee, can't do anything about that.
Mr. O'Connor?
My apologies to Brendan. I don't believe it was unanimous in committee. I ask that my no vote be recorded in
that's
committee.
That's correct. It was not on consent. Mr. Nudo?
Yeah, I think, Mr. Becker, what I'm concerned about, and evidently several others are, so we didn't reach 18 votes, was the principle of how we arrived at coming up with the amount of the budget to come in under a certain number or amount, and then have this being separated from it. And I think maybe going back to committee would allow the committee to come up with a policy that everything be included when a vote is taken on a given project, so that it's not piecemealed out to make it look better. And that's my only point. Out of principle vote, and then evidently I understand that, Steve, that's not what we have to have it paid for. We can't renege on our bills, but the point is, maybe this is a time to take a look at how we do things in committee so that we don't piecemeal it out.
Mr. Knott, did you have a comment?
I just, have we actually paid the contractors? That's what I wasn't.
We're holding on payments.
Okay.
Mr. Beckett?
That's just crazy, Al. You weren't here. That's crazy. No, listen to me. Listen to me.
Calm down, Steve. Calm down, Steve.
I am, but this is crazy. We knew that the cost of the parking lot would put us over budget. We asked our highway engineer what he wanted to do about it. He wanted to do the work himself. And he had a revenue source, which combined with the bond fund source, that would allow us to complete this project. And every human being in this room who voted on it knew exactly that's what we were doing. There was nothing hidden. We weren't playing games with the budget. It was the way the funding sources could come together that would allow us. Jeff Blue's here. Ask him. He'll tell you it happened exactly that way. But now you guys want to play games with this budget amendment for God knows why, because it's an election year. That's the only thing I can figure. It's an election year. God help us.
Okay, remember, the discussion is on whether to reconsider, please. Mr. Jay.
I have a different view than Mr. Beckett. I think one of the problems that we have is this is the second instance where we took a project and split it up. The nursing home was the first. We were having trouble making it get in the budget, so we had Jeff, and actually in this case too, the highway department, do some work for us. We took far more out of the nursing home than any of us ever thought would happen. We asked questions about it early, but never got any answers. I think the same thing's true here. I think when we take a portion of the project away from the core of the project, it leaves an area that I understand what happened because I was on facilities. But not everybody's going to understand it. And I think in the future we need to be careful about doing this, because every time so far, or at least since I've been on board, it gets us in trouble, and it's because people don't understand what's going on. If this is an $800,000 additional cost on what we said the budget for the highway building was, so be it. We need to tell that up front and move on.
Mr. James.
That's what my comment was going to be. We need a better understanding, and sometimes it all gets lost in the shuffle because time moves on. But also, I didn't even know it was an election year, so thank you, Steve.
Nice try, Mr. James. Mr. Carter.
Well, it is a problem. I thought we had a $6 million budget for the construction of the building. Now, this is not the same part that we voted on the building with, is it? Can somebody answer me?
Mr. Carter, unfortunately, the discussion is on whether to reconsider. If we reconsider, then I can bring up Mr. Blue and he can talk to you about that.
Mr. Chairman,
Now,
I want to know, is this part of the $6 million or not?
I can't answer that question. I'd like to let Mr. Blue answer that. Mr. Carter, I'd like to bring up Mr. Blue to answer that, but we need to vote on this motion to reconsider first.
Well, we need to know why is it every time we vote on the budget, it always coming up different down at the end.
If we move ahead and move.
It never come out right.
Can we vote on the motion to reconsider? Mr. Langenheim?
Somebody tell me, just to refresh my memory, my understanding is that we have contracted for this and the construction has been done?
Yes.
That's correct.
And we're in a position where we're paying for something that we ordered and accepted?
Yes.
Correct.
I think that's worth thinking about.
Mr. Nod?
Would it be okay if Jeff already came up and explained, and that may help all these votes if there's a little more
Can we
clarity?
do it now without?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Blue, please.
As you may or may not remember, if you were on the board or not, back when we bid this project, the original number was $1.1 million over where you guys wanted to be. And we went back to the drawing board and pulled out a lot of this stuff and said, we're going to do this with our own forces. Now, by doing that, we're down to $800,000. So $300,000 you say, I think it was a good move. Maybe you guys think it was moving shells around, but I think you saved $300,000 ultimately by pulling all that stuff out and saying, Jeff, why don't you guys go ahead and do it yourself? The actual building project, which was the budget for the general contractor, the electric, the plumbing, the heating, the ventilation, all that stuff, we're actually under budget on the total project that you guys voted on and gave me a budget to build. we're $400 under budget, but I think when you build a $7 million project and you stay within $400 of the budget, you did a pretty good job of taking care of business and doing the things that you need to do. The motor fuel tax money that is being used to fund this $800,000 was approved by IDOT. It was actually in resolutions that were passed by the county board and appropriated for the construction of the building. Now, what that money did is it ended up in my motor fuel tax fund line item for doing these things. Maybe I was naive, but I thought I could use that money to pay for stuff outside of the contract, which you guys knew was going to happen. When we started doing that, the auditor said, no, we want to account for every single dollar that's going into the building, so therefore, the entire budget has to be shown as the budget that the board approved plus the motor fuel tax money that you guys are going to be spending to do these things that are outside of the general contractor's budget. So the money's there. It's been approved by IDOT. It's actually been appropriated through resolutions passed by the county board. It's just sitting in the wrong line item, and it can't be spent right now because the auditor says that we have to move it to the line item to pay for the building, and that's where we're sitting. And I'll answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Carter, go ahead.
Yeah. My point is, Jeff, if you need $7 million, say $7 million. Don't say 6, and then at the end, you need 7. We can't understand that.
Right. But the money was appropriated through resolutions to the appropriate amount to build the building. It just wasn't put in the line item that said building construction or whatever the administrative services line item they're using. This whole convoluted process is that we have to transfer money to the administrative services division in order to pay for the project. When it all began, again, I was naive in thinking that, oh, I'll pay for my part and they'll pay for their part and it'll all come out of different funds and we'll all meet in the middle. But the fact of the matter was it all had to be transferred to one fund and then paid directly out of that fund. And we never were able to transfer this money because it wasn't put into the general contractor's original budget that you guys set.
Well, I'm not trying to be mean, but the point, man, I don't know. I never seen anybody miss the contract so far.
We're $400 under budget with our contracts.
And now, well, here's the point. We asked the question again. Did you have the money?
We do have the money. That is exactly what I'm saying. The money is sitting appropriated in our motor fuel tax fund to pay this bill.
But then why we have to go over here to make a resolution to get money at the end of the budget?
I wish we didn't have to either, believe me, but we do.
Ms. Amons.
I think as I am certainly interested in reconsidering the motion, my question is on the line of what Mr. Carter is pointing out. I was not on this board when this original project was done, and when I received my packet for this meeting about a week ago, I attended the initial meeting, asked a question about this same appropriation, and walked away. I don't know if I was confused or even more confused by the time I walked away, not understanding when a project is sent out and a budget is put in place, why we would remove a very necessary part of the project because it doesn't fit into the budget. So we kind of made it fit, and then we will do it on the back end. And I think that that's what I, who have no experience on building projects whatsoever, when I receive this and I look at it and the line description says to me, well, we took this out because we were over budget. That's basically what the line item said, is we had to take this out because we were over budget, we couldn't fit it in, and so we took it out. And then now we come back and say, me, come lately, right? I have to approve putting it back in when I don't understand why we didn't either down our project so that we didn't have to spend so much money to be over budget and can afford to have a parking lot at the same time, and then not have to go back on the back end and change the budget and change this amendment and transfer this money.
And yeah, the budget was set for the contract amount that the contractor bid. That was the board's decision to do that at the time. It's just, if you build a house, and if any of you've had that experience and you go, I can stain the windows cheaper than the contractor, so you take that $20,000 out of his bid and you go do it, but you still got to go to Menards and you got to buy the stain and you got to do all the work. So the money, even though you're not paying the contractor, you still got to pay yourself and you got to pay Menards to get all the stuff. And that's the same thing that happened here.
Are we endorsing Menards now?
Mr. J, do you have a comment?
I just would like Jeff to clarify one thing. One of the other questions, Jeff, was we are still legal in our use of the motor fuel tax and the percentage to the building and so forth. That was the other question that was in our caucus, actually.
Yes, the money's actually already been appropriated and authorized by IDOT as well as the county board for these expenditures.
Mr. Langenheim.
Another question for our legal counsel or our administrator. What are the consequences of our not paying a bill for something that we've already accepted?
There is a payment act, which you all have heard me refer to before, that's called the Illinois Prompt Payment Act, that requires units of government, including the county board, to pay bills submitted to it for payment within 30 days of the date that bill has been submitted for payment. You have bills pending now from this project that have not been paid. And as Mr. Beckett and others have pointed out this evening, if the bills aren't paid, then we can be sued for not meeting our obligation.
Mr. Noodle?
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
Mr. Noodle?
All right, that all makes sense. But why are we going through this charade of having a vote? What I'm saying is to take it back to committee so that it is done properly and that it all up front is said. Here's we're spending this much here, and vote on both of them. It's crazy to be voting after the fact when the bill's already due. Sorry, I stand by what I think.
Mr. Betts.
Again, the motion on the floor is to reconsider,
Yes.
and I would ask that the chair call the roll on the motion.
I agree. Let's have a
roll call. Do it a roll call so you got it all clean.
All right, we'll roll call to reconsider.
Anderson?
Yes.
Beckett?
Yes.
Benzel? No. Betts?
Yes.
Carter?
I really don't like this. I think I've been misled in this.
Let's just reconsider, Mr. Carter.
Well, yeah, you can say that, but you don't know how I feel.
Yes or no, please?
No.
Howard?
Yes.
Dennitz?
Yes.
Gladney?
Yes.
Gross? Hunt? James? Jay?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Knott? Langenheim? McGinty?
Yes.
Mosier? Nudo? O'Connor? Putman? Richards? Sapp? Pardon?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
Wysocki?
Yes.
Ammons?
Yes.
Weibel?
Yes, motion carries. The motion, we're now back to the main motion, that is the adoption of resolution number 6677. Mr. Betts.
I would reiterate my previous statement regarding the motion. As the chair knows, and the administrator knows, and as Mr. Blue has noted, this is already been budgeted, it's already anticipated. All we're dealing with is a change in the auditing mechanism here. That's all that's going on. I think we need to understand we do have to pay our bills, and as difficult as it is, and sometimes we don't like to pay our bills, we do have that obligation to set that example to the community that the county keeps its word and pays its bill. And so I would, despite I know people have individual misgivings, I would urge folks to vote yes on the resolution 6677 so that we pay the bills.
Mr. McGinty.
The auditor's been mentioned a few times, thought we might want to hear from him.
Mr. Auditor, go ahead.
You know, I hope no one here thinks that you're saving $800,000 by voting no on this, because the $800,000 was set aside for this purpose by this board, and the $800,000 has been spent in contractors for the purpose authorized by this board. And I understand the frustration of board members who say, well, I want to know when we vote on a project what it's actually going to cost. And what we're asking tonight is to make sure that the accounting for this project actually reflects what the project costs. We don't want the highway construction budget, if you look that up in future audits and say, oh, it was this much, but then there are other line items where expenses that actually were part of that construction project are listed. This is to accurately reflect the cost of this project. That's what my office wanted when we said that this needs to be included in the construction costs. I think having an accurate reflection of the cost of this project is what the board wants, and I know it's what the public wants. And so please don't vote no on this thinking you're saving $800,000. The money's been set aside, it's been spent, it's owed by the county, and if you want the construction project to accurately reflect the cost of the project, then this is the appropriate vote to make.
Mr. James.
Susan's comment, I mean, it hit home with me, and I understand, the law, and there's this Illinois Act. But I think the problem I always have when we always hear we have to pay bills and we're obligated and we're this, we all know that. I mean, my gosh, I got utility bills, car payments, alimony, what have you. But the thing I always get upset about is we sit here and argue this stuff, but the state crams it down our throat and we look at it like it's gospel. But then when they owe us money or owe somebody else money, and I know I'm belaboring this point, but they get by with breaking the law that they set. And then here we sit and say, well, we got to do it. And I think that's where some of us have a problem. And I sort of what Al said, because my mind kept telling me that building was $6-point-some million. I sat in on that committee, but again, as I age, I forget things. But just be upfront about it. And I understand budgets because we all have them. I have several bank accounts, but I guess that's just my comment. I just get mad at the state, and we need to address the issue sometime and force their hand to pay their bills.
Mr. Noodle?
I don't believe there's a county board member that feels that we're saving $800,000. That was not the question. The question was, why didn't we, at the same time we approved this vote for the facility, approve the $800,000 for the...
We did.
We have a motion then. We actually passed a motion to pay.
Yes. Yes.
Then why are we voting on it now?
Because it's the money
So,
part of it.
Ms. Noodle, you will yield to Ms. Wysocki, please?
I will.
Ms. Wysocki.
I'm just responding. We did approve this. I knew fully well what we were doing when this item came up. We do have resolutions out the wazoo for this issue. Come on, how much more do you need on black and white?
Mr. Noodle, continue if you need to. Ms. Gross.
I think that the verbiage here on the reason is part of what's confusing people. This does not cover any additional expenditures. Everything in this project was in the initial resolutions. All we said was we're going to pay the building with this, we're going to pay the building out of the cookie jar money, and we're going to pay the parking lot out of the egg money. And now we need to move the egg money into the general checking account so we can pay the bill. And that's really, it's all it is an accounting thing to move it from this line, if you're thinking of a big Excel spreadsheet, you're moving it from this column to this column so you can pay the bill. That's all you're doing.
Ms. Amons.
Sorry, I just wanted to go back, and I understand, I really appreciate Ms. Gross clarifying the cookie jar money. The packet I received says clearly this amendment covers additional expenditures. And so for a person who's a layperson who just came yesterday, it makes me think that I have gone and I have purchased additional things in my house that pay this bill. That's what it looks like to the layperson, and the language actually says that in this packet, and so that's where my confusion came from. And I know people really hate, because anytime another person has the floor, according to the rules, we should not disrespect the person who's speaking. And the video camera does a very good job picking up that poor behavior. And I wish either the parliamentarian or the chair would address that when we disrespect another person who's speaking and has the floor.
I try to.
The language in here needs to reflect what you're actually doing, as opposed to some correction and we need to interpret it.
Well, I think using the word additional can mean many things. So some people, well, it is not, it is correct, we could read it a different way. Mr. Benzel.
Thank you. I've been on the losing side of every one of the votes on this building, and I never dreamed I'd be on the prevailing side of this one tonight.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so I've relished my few minutes here, but now I'm done with that. We have a bill that has to be paid. We know that. I voted no on this thing out of consistency. I referee football. Every coach has ever told me all we ask is consistency, and I wanted to be consistent from the beginning to the end. So I was never opposed to the project. I was opposed to the cost of the project. So I felt like we built a building that's above and beyond what we probably really needed, and I still feel that way, but that's my personal feeling. So I voted no against this from the very beginning. Mr. Beckett's right. I knew from the very beginning, as well as most people in here probably did or should have, that parking lot was originally in the original bid. Mr. Blue's right, it was over budget. We brought it back out so we could make the building look like it was in budget, but we all knew this was coming back in the end. So this isn't a surprise to me. My point in the beginning of this was I simply don't like that process. I don't think it looks good. And my vote no on that was because I think it's a poor process. If we are over budget from the very beginning, we don't pull a piece of it out to make it look like it's in budget and then just shift dollars around, and that's really what we did. So we didn't bring the building in budget. We did save $300,000 because expenses came down over what it was, and I'm appreciative of that. But my whole problem with this from the very beginning was you don't do that. You just don't pull something out of there to make it look like the project's in budget and then put it back in later. Did we know it was coming? Sure we did, or we should have. I knew it was coming. That doesn't make me like it any better. So my vote was no for that reason. I'm going to keep my no vote because I have from day one, but I sure hope that there's enough people that change their vote to get this thing passed because we do need to pay this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Benzel. Mr. McGinty.
Thanks, Ron. I appreciate that because I understand your principled vote, but I would encourage everyone to remember from a fiscal standpoint what Mr. Blue said in particular and ask that we call the question.
Second by Mr. Nutt to call the question. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Roll call.
Anderson.
There's no discussion, Mr. Carter.
Anderson.
Mr. Carter, you're out of order. Roll call.
Anderson.
Let me make sure I know what I'm voting on.
It's the main
Am I
motion.
voting- The main motion.
Main motion.
Yes.
Beckett.
Yes.
Benzel.
No.
Betts.
Yes.
Carter.
No. I was going to take
Cowart.
mine, but since I couldn't say so.
Denitz.
Yes.
Gladney.
Yes.
Gross. Hunt.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
Jay.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Knott. Langenheim.
Yes.
McGinty.
Yes.
Mosher.
Yes.
Nudo.
Yes.
O'Connor.
Yes.
Putman. Richards.
Yes.
Sapp. Schrader.
Yes.
Wysocki. Ammons. Weibel.
Yes, motion carries.
And Mr. Chair, in the spirit of what Mr. Betts had started earlier with other budget amendments, I would like to move item 3 for reconsideration for the purpose of moving it back to the Finance Committee. The other ones were moved back to the committee, but this one was not. It's item 3 off of the consent agenda.
Okay, we need a motion to...
Actually, the motion has to be made by somebody who voted on the prevailing
Oh,
side.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I would ask
Yes,
that somebody
sorry.
who voted no for a motion to reconsider.
Move. Go ahead.
Mr. Sapp? Okay, we have a move by Mr. Sapp. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Ammons. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
So then I'd go ahead and move it to back to committee.
Motion moving back to committee by Mr. McGinty, second by Mr. Beckett. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Mr. McGinty. A couple small items yet under other business. First of all, Highway did not meet, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Cowart, there's no actions to vote on from Highway. Is that correct, Ms. Cowart? Yes, it is. Thank you. Other business, Mr. Noodle. Mr. Noodle, wake up.
I'll for another month.
Okay. There's no new business. I just want to make one final comment, is that Ms. Anderson may be leaving us for a while, but we hope that you come back healthy and soon. Thank you very much, Ms. Anderson, for your work. We're adjourned.